Jason had just returned from Haiti. He is an emergency room doctor, and he went to Haiti with some other physicians to assist after the earthquake in 2010. You might remember that horrible event. A massive earthquake hit that poor island nation, and well over 300,000 people died, and hundreds of thousands more were homeless or injured. For about a week, Jason practiced what he called primitive medicine, facing broken bones and infections and grave injuries with a minimum of medical supplies and really no modern equipment. He delivered a set of premature twins in a muddy tent, and they both died. And Jason said to me, if these children had been born in the poorest hospital in America, they would have been saved. But in Haiti, everything is turned upside down. As I concluded my conversation with Jason after he got back from Haiti, he said to me, what I saw in Haiti has changed my life, because when you see people whose lives have been turned upside down, you start to ask questions about what's really important in life. In the first chapters of Luke's Gospel, Jesus stays busy doing very important things at the start of his public ministry. Following his baptism by John in the Jordan, Jesus faces the devil's temptations in the desert. He preaches in his hometown and doesn't get a warm welcome there. He cures the sick, calls his first disciples, preaches good news, engages in debates with religious authorities. And having gone up the mountain to call and name his 12 apostles, he then comes down the slope, and on a level stretch of land, he begins to preach again. And this time, Jesus preaches a message which is intended to turn the world upside down. We hear part of that world-changing sermon today. Many of us, we call this section of his sermon the Beatitudes. And that word, beatitude, comes from the Latin word beatus, which means blessed, or truly happy, or deeply fulfilled. We've heard the Beatitudes often. Matthew and Luke both recount these words of Jesus, and even non-believers are familiar with the fact that Jesus said something like, "Blessed are the peacemakers." We are familiar with these words of Jesus, but despite our best efforts to sugarcoat and tame these Beatitudes, they still have the power to turn our world upside down if we dare to listen to them and dare to live them. How would your life change today if you really believed Jesus when he says, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you who are hungry now. Blessed are you who weep. Blessed are you and people hate you." Perhaps even more challenging is this question. How would your world be turned upside down right now if you dared to listen to Jesus when he said, "Woe to you who are rich. Woe to you who are filled now. Woe to you who laugh now. Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you." When Jesus first preached these words, the Beatitudes overturned well over 1,000 years worth of some people's piety. There was a strain of Jewish piety which believed that wealth, health, and power were all signs that God loved you. Come to think of it, that ancient Jewish piety may be alive and well in some modern Christian preaching. There were people at the time of Jesus who were convinced also that sickness and suffering and poverty were all signs that somehow you had disappointed God. But as Jesus preaches these Beatitudes, he's overturning some important assumptions that his contemporaries had about who God is and how God works. You can just picture the folks in that vast crowd kind of scratching their heads and saying, Did I hear him right? Did he say that the poor are blessed? I thought that poverty was God's punishment for laziness. Did I hear him right? Did he say, woe to the rich? I thought that prosperity was a sign of God's favor toward me. Did I hear him right? Did I hear him say, woe to you who are full? I thought that God's abundance on my table was a sign that I was abundantly blessed by a God I had pleased. And yet, they did hear him right. Jesus knew what he was saying, and he knew that his words would turn the world upside down if anyone would listen. And if anyone is listening, his words could have the same effect today. Yet, for the most part, many of us still worship at other altars. The altars of power or money or control, instant gratification. We want it all. We want it now. We want it the way we want it. And then along comes Jesus, quietly happy to turn our world upside down, insisting that it is the poor, not the prosperous, who inherit the kingdom. It's the weeping, not the wealthy, who hold a special place in God's heart. It's the hungry, not the beautiful people, who find authentic satisfaction. It's the sick, the sinner, the outcast, who find a home in God. And the self-righteous, the self-satisfied, the self-indulgent, who must wander in a desert of disconnection. Why would Jesus stand on flat ground and preach things that turn our world upside down? Well, on one hand, I think he really, really wants to get our attention. My friend Jason went to Haiti, and the dramatic things he saw and experienced there caused him to rethink his priorities. In the gospel, that crowd of folks came from the surrounding villages and towns, and somewhere near the shores of the Sea of Galilee, they saw Jesus, and they heard his dramatic preaching of the truth. The Beatitudes of Jesus call Christians to think, and think hard, about what's really worth doing in life. The Beatitudes are the revelation of some of God's dearest priorities. Could Jesus be any more forthright in telling us what's truly important? He says to us, woe to you. Woe to you if you're spending your life chasing wealth. Woe to you if a full belly and a full bank account have the highest priority in life. Woe to you if you've worked tirelessly to avoid the pain, the need, the injustice which afflicts your neighbor. A life focused on consuming and having and hoarding isn't a life worth living. But blessed are you who embrace the poverty of Christ, the poverty which allowed him to pour out everything for those he loved. Blessed are you. Blessed when you know the deep hunger of your own heart, the hunger for God, a hunger which leads you to feed your hungry neighbor. Blessed are you when people hate you because of what you stand for and who you stand for. Blessed are you when people know that you're a Christian not just because of your words, but through your deeds. Blessed are you. Blessed are you because you stood up for the truth, and that standing for truth cost you something. You could avoid all of that by simply keeping quiet and getting along. But blessed are you who will not compromise when it comes to the gospel. Blessed are you when you weep. When you weep over the suffering of your friend. When you weep over the violence between nations. When you weep over violence done to the unborn. When you weep over the lack of welcome for the stranger or the refugee, the injustice which masquerades as life in the real world. Blessed are you when you weep, because, remember, Jesus wept when his dear friend Lazarus died, and anything that makes us more like Jesus is, by definition, a blessing. And in the end, isn't that the whole point? You and I, as baptized believers, are called to live a Christ-like life. We're called and empowered by the Spirit to become more and more like Christ. The Beatitudes are a blessing because those who seek to live them become more like Christ. The Christ who was poor, the Christ who wept, the Christ who hungered, the Christ who was persecuted, the Christ whose bold proclamation unleashed the kingdom here and now. So, blessed are you, Jason, you emergency room physician. You went to Haiti and you wept. You experienced the poverty of those people. You went to bed hungry after a long day of hard medicine, and you came back hungry to help. Blessed are you, Jason, because you let Christ turn your world upside down. And now your priorities are more and more the priorities of Christ. Woe to us who miss the message. Blessed are we who hear and believe and act.